So I'm very conscious of the time, and I'm very conscious of the fact that there's cake downstairs. But I do want to say a little something today, because we are doing today what the gospel calls us to do. We are worshiping and we are welcoming into this world. We are trying as hard as we can to create the beloved community. That phrase has become more popular in our lives because Martin Luther King used that phrase all the time, to create the beloved community. And so I want to tell you a story one time about how I was really wrapped up in that beloved community kind of stuff, and I was young in the ministry. Now, I wasn't young by any means whatsoever, but I was a pup in the ministry. I'd only been preaching about a year, and trying to find that groove of preaching, that I was supposed to be in. And the pastor that I worked with chained me to the pulpit, and if you all notice, I can't stand in the pulpit and preach because I just can't say anything when I'm up there. But I one morning thought, okay, you got to get over your nerves standing in that pulpit. So what is it that you do best? You sing. You sing pretty well. You sing pretty well. So I thought, that's it. That's the key. I will get up there and I will sing, and that will be a great message for everybody, right? So I take the pulpit. I remember I was young in the ministry, and there were lots of things that you hadn't learned yet that you weren't supposed to be doing in the ministry, right? So I get up there and I said, this morning, I would just like to use a song from my past that I think all of you might love. That's a little arrogant, right? So I stand up there, and forgetting that not everybody loves the same kind of music that I love, right? And so I get up there and I'm like, if you know this song, please sing it with me. And I go, listen, children, to a story that was written long ago. And that's exactly what happened. They all started laughing at me. They all started laughing at me because they were just like, who is this crazy chick up here singing this bad song from the 1970s? But I pursued, and I got really into it at the part where it says, now the valley cried with anger, mount your horses, draw your swords. And then I said, and you all know this, sing with me. So I made them start singing with me. I was like, oh my God, Monday morning in the pastor's office, I am going to be dead. I am going to be dead. But what happens in that song is that the valley people, they get mad because they think the mountain people have something that is some sort of treasure that they should have in their hands, right? And so they storm up the mountain and they kill all the mountain people. And then when they think they've got their just reward, as the song says, they turn over this great big stone that supposedly the treasure is buried underneath of. Peace on earth was all it said, right? And then the singer of that song goes into this great big huge chorus. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat your friends. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpet blowing come the judgment day on the bloody morning after one tin soldier rides away. So knowing that I was dead in the pulpit right there, I just kept pursuing that line of thinking. And I got done and sat down, and the pastor went, you think that worked, huh? Yeah, so yeah. Got through the rest of the service, and of course, as was the habit, the pastor that preached that day was the one who shook hands with everybody to say goodbye. And this crotchety old man, who, if you knew him, would have put you in the mind of Foggy Thompson, walked up to me and said, you just keep preaching that sermon. That's the only sermon you'd ever need to preach. And I feel like for the last 20 years of my life, that's what I've been doing. Preaching the sermon, peace on earth is all that matters. But we will never have peace on earth, brothers and sisters. We will never have the beloved community that Jesus talked about, and we'll never have the beloved community that Martin Luther King talked about, as long as we continue in some way in our lives to be the kinds of people who said to Jesus, why are you eating with tax collectors and sinners? You know, my old friend Bob Ludovic used to say to me, we should put a great big sign out in front of this place that says, sinners welcome, saints go home. Because there's something about all of us that falls short of the glory of God. There's something in our lives that falls short of the glory of God, which makes us all the same, basically, in our lives. Yet if you look in this world, what you see going on all over the place is the valley people fighting the mountain people. They've got what I want, and I'm going to race up the hill, and I'm going to take it from them no matter what they say. That old song teaches us exactly what Jesus Christ always tried to teach, and that is that the valley people and the mountain people already have what they need. They don't need to disaffirm one another. They don't need to carry those labels of valley people and mountain people. They can lift one another up. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt anyone in this world to say this person has worth. It doesn't take away from our worth. In Jesus' time, people acted that way. In the book of Genesis, when they were writing about Genesis, writing in there about God creating us, let us create humankind in our image. All these wars had already happened before that story of creation is ever written down. And it occurred to me this week as I was studying that when they're writing about let us make humankind in our image, you can either count that as the Trinity, or you can count that as the Hebraic people do as the divine council of gods around God. But the reality is this: there is more than one face there when God is creating. There's more than one essence there when God is creating. Meaning that there's a representation of every person on the face of this earth in the midst of the God that we worship. And yet we are called toward by this world being valley people or mountain people. We are called toward claiming our own birthright and forgetting others' birthright. Because somehow in our minds, somehow in our hearts, we think that lifting up others might harm us somehow. So I just want to ask you today to go home and search your hearts and find out if you're living as a mountain person whose only treasure is to bring peace on earth, or if you're living as a valley person, a person who's so worried about what someone else has, or what right someone else has been given, or how another life is being lifted up. Are you a valley person who envies that so much that you want what they have? Because if we're going to truly bring peace on earth, what we have to do is remember that we are all created in the image and likeness of God. We have to all remember that just because a person doesn't look like me, doesn't think like me, doesn't worship like me, doesn't love like me, doesn't eat like me, doesn't drink like me, just because those things happen does not mean that that person is less than I am. And just because I don't look like, I don't drink like, I don't eat like, I don't worship like, I don't think like, I don't say like another person does not mean that I'm less than they are. We don't have to disaffirm others to grab our own affirmation as the beloved community. That's what we need to ask ourselves. Amen.